Hi, welcome to Riders of a Certain Age presents Conversations Beyond the Barn. I'm your host, Fran Severn. Each Tuesday, I chat with people whose lives center around horses in unusual, unexpected ways. These are people who create the richness and variety of the equine world with their fascinating careers, hobbies, and livelihoods. Their stories show their passion for horses and the equine world, and it is a treat for me to share them with you. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's Conversations Beyond the Barn. Welcome to Conversations Beyond the Barn. I'm your host, Fran Severn. Today, I'm with Mary Rose Gullett, founder of Honey's Mini Therapy Adventures. This Tampa, Florida-based organization takes mini horses to visits at hospitals, schools, senior centers, pediatric facilities. They also work with hospice. But these aren't just fun, cute pet the horse outings. They have a very serious mission to harness the healing power of equine therapy to uplift and empower individuals in their community who are facing physical, emotional, and psychological challenges. Welcome.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to be here.
Great. Equine assisted therapy is widely accepted now. For a while it was kind of out there, but now its value is very well accepted. But usually it involves full-size horses and clients and patients traveling to a barn or to a riding center. You are different. You travel to the people and you use minis. Why do you take that approach?
So we found very quickly in our mission that it was a needed service. Many people don't have the ability to travel to the barns. They may be bedbound or don't have the ability to travel. So we have found a little niche that kind of meets the need of patients and clients that on-site equine therapy programs aren't able to do. So we saw a need first with seniors, and then it just continued to spread from there.
So what are the advantages of using minis as opposed to taking a full-size horse?
So there's a couple of different advantages. Obviously, we're going inside facilities. So, like walking through doors, a full size horse might not fit through your traditional doorways. And then also, the miniatures are a little bit easier to approach. Sometimes the full size horses can be a bit intimidating, especially if someone has had a bad experience with the horse. They might have gotten stepped on or some type of experience with the horse. And the minis, especially for kids, are just so much easier to approach. They're eye level to them. They're smaller in stature and they are adorable.
So what kind of therapies do you administer? Because you've got a broad range of places you go.
Yes. So it depends on the setting and where we're going. So we do a little bit of equine assisted therapy, which is, similar to what the dogs do. And then we also do equine assisted learning. So those can be done without like a therapist or someone with a license that's involved. And we can also provide equine facilitated psychotherapy, which is a little bit more different. It incorporates traditional modalities of therapy like cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps with redirecting thoughts that lead to different feelings and actions, and dialectical behavioral therapy, which is more about grounding and being present. And horses have such a grounding presence to them that it really enhances that type of therapy. Um, and so most of what we do, in the hospitals when we're going around it's just traditional, equine assisted therapy. The horses have their certifications to be able to enter into places where, your average dog or your average animal is not able to. So it all depends on the population and what the needs are of the facility that we're going to.
Okay, now how many therapy horses do you now have? Because you started with Honey and now you have more.
Yes. So we quickly realized that we were going to need more than just one horse. I don't know about you, but I don't like going to work every day of the week. So we have about 10 horses that we use in the program. We have a couple of extra that have the ability to do it, but they might not be fully, finished training. So they help us on, visits where we can take one in training too. And we try to only let the horse work at a maximum of 2 days per week. So we really try to ensure that they're getting their time that they need in the pasture with their buddies for their own mental health and happiness. Um, and usually, when we take one horse out one week and they might have worked 2 days, we try to do our best to give them off the following week and kind of rotate them. So, um, some people think that we have a lot of horses, but it's for, their well-being too. So we try to ensure that, they're getting their best life on the farm.
Okay, you mentioned training and certification. What kind of training do they go through in certification, and what kind of desensit? Oh, let's start. What kind of certifications they need?
So they're qualified through the American Miniature Therapy Horse Association. And that gives us we get evaluated by a third party. A lot of it looks very similar to show training. So if you think of like in-hand obstacles in a horse show where they're walking over obstacles, they're walking over poles, they can walk. We create like a small space. Usually we get like 4 hay bales or 6 hay bales, and we put them, stack them up on top of each other, so that they get close to, or they get comfortable like going in enclosed areas. And then we take the approach off the farm. We start in Tractor Supply, Lowe's, Home Depot, um, because it's a stimulating environment. There's loud noises, there's people there. So they get that they start getting the interaction, with people off the farm. And if they're pretty comfortable there, we have a couple of local nursing homes that love when we're training horses. We give them a call and we say, hey, we've got a horse that we need to start training inside facilities. Then we bring them to those facilities. We even have a couple that have elevators. The first one that they all go to, it's a very small nursing home. It's maybe like a 40-bed facility. So there's lots of exits if, the horse needs to use the restroom or if the horse gets uncomfortable. But normally, by the time that they get to that, we've never had to leave a facility. We're pretty confident in their skill set, and that they're comfortable with what we're doing. And then we have a couple facilities that have elevators so we can begin elevator training with them, because that's a whole different aspect. We don't have an elevator on the farm. So and we found the ones that struggle with elevators are your typical horses that struggle with loading. Like if they have hesitation with loading into a trailer, we typically see that they'll struggle with the elevator a little bit, until it's like their, 20th ride on an elevator. You see it's a big scary box. The ground moves. It's the
Yeah.
same thing in a horse trailer. So some of them don't bat an eye, and the ones that they're just like, okay, whatever, we're fine going on an elevator. Those are your ones that just pop on the trailer and go, and don't have any hesitation. But the ones that we have to work with to get them onto the trailer and get them comfortable on the trailer, we typically have to do the same methods on an elevator.
Also, you said earlier we were talking about using the loo. You told me that you have trained your horses to be housebroken and to relieve themselves on command, because I know everybody's going to ask that question.
Yeah, yeah, it's a commonly asked question, and to be honest, when I first started this, I didn't believe that horses could be house trained. And horses always have a way of humbling us and proving us wrong. I figured that they have learned, just like we teach a horse to walk, trot, and canter verbally by command. They learn what go potty means. In the Tractor Supplies and Lowe's and Home Depot, all the horses, even mares or geldings, they have this stance that they prepare, and you see them put out their 2 feet. So we just quietly, disengage the back end, push them back a little bit, and walk them directly outside into a patch of grass, walk them in a circle. It's the only part of their training that we do treat reward for. We also, so like when they park out and they go, we tell them, good job, go on potty, and we give them a treat. We've also learned that some of the horses learn by other horses. So once we had our first house trained horse, it's been easier to house train each one. And it also starts on the farm when I had one that I really struggled with house training. And I was like, this horse is not ever going to be a hospital horse because um, we can't rely that, she's used the restroom before a visit. And I caught her right before feed time using number one, and I threw like this potty party and I gave her a bunch of treats. That horse for like 3 months, every time it was feed time, would park out and use the restroom. And so that was how we trained her. So it was different than any other horse that we had trained. And now she's successfully house trained. So it is an important aspect, but they also wear a little bag that attaches to their gear to ensure, no accidents happen
Sure,
inside of a facility. And it's always a nerve, that's always in the back of our
yeah,
mind. Like, we don't want them to have an accident, but
sure.
once we get them to hospital level, they're good.
Well, okay, there are many people have many different energies and the situations and the locations, and horses always pick up on that energy and that frequency. Do some horses like one location and one setting and one client more than another? And do you adjust what you're doing to accommodate that?
Absolutely. Yes, we have some horses that don't mind wherever they go. They're happy little pea pods. We have one that prefers the pediatric population, so she likes little people. We always see that she's so much more interactive. She's really small too, so she's like 28 inches, and we always take her to like our pediatric visits because that's her population. We have one that doesn't prefer kids. They can be a little loud. He's a little sensitive to loud noises. And so like big events, if we know that there's going to be like music there, or a lot of chaotic kids that, can be unpredictable, we tend to leave him at home. And so we do try to decipher whether they like certain areas. And like I said, the majority of them though don't mind wherever we go. They don't mind the population. So that makes it a lot easier because we only have a couple of them that, we're like, oh, we're going on a kids visit. We need to bring this one, or that one
Yeah.
needs to stay home. So
So let's go back a little bit, get some background. How did Honey come into your life and how did the therapy start?
So we didn't buy Honey with any intention of doing this work. I was raising foundation quarter horses. That was my dream. We had a beautiful program, and we were putting some really nice babies on the ground. Um, I have kids, and my son, he's a little older. He had been scared of horses a couple of times. Just the nature of them. They were big. If they ran through the pastures, you could tell he would always like gravitate to the fences. And then I had a little girl, and I knew if my daughter was anything like me, that she would live and breathe horses. I knew that it wasn't 100%. I've got friends that love horses and have little girls, and they don't love horses. So, um, we bought Honey for her second birthday. I had been looking for Honey for like literally since I found out when she was in my belly that she was a little going to be a girl. Um, it took me a long time to find her. I went and I probably looked at 25 miniature horses over the course of 2 years, and one tried to kick my son, one tried to bite my son, and we found Honey on Facebook actually, and the lady who placed her with us had a lot of interest in her, and I told her that I was looking for her for my little girl, and she messaged me back and she said that Honey deserves to have a little girl that loves her. So I have chosen you to take Honey. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even seen this horse yet. Like I was a little nervous because I had gone to look at so many. The moment that we went to pick her up, I knew she was special. And when we pulled her off the horse trailer, we have a book, and the front cover of the book is actually like the first time that she met Honey, and it was truthfully like the first Honey visit. Like, she just had this such gentle nature to her. And I was showing her off to one of my really good horse friends from childhood. She had come over and we're in the horse pasture, and I'm like, look, she's like a dog. Like you walk over here and she follows you, and she just like wants to be right with you. And she's like, that friend gave me the idea to turn Honey into a therapy horse, and that idea literally changed the entire course of our life. So
So
it
what was your first therapy? What did you do the first time? Where did you go?
So we first went to a senior care home. We after we got our little certificate that said that she's a therapy horse through the American Miniature Therapy Horse Association, we begged nursing homes and people. I truthfully think they thought I was a little crazy because I'm asking them to bring a horse in, and immediately once we were inside the facility, we saw just an immeasurable need. So many seniors, used to have animals, don't have animals anymore. My favorite visit was probably one of the very first ones, and it really impacted the drive that kind of created our mission. We had a little lady that used to have horses, and she had a tiny one that used to bite her when she was little, but she didn't care. She loved it so much. Um, and then she went to her kind of mid-age, when she was in her 20s. She was a jockey club uh, trainer, not a racer. She wasn't allowed to race because women weren't allowed to race at that time. She was very still kind of bitter about it in her old age because the rules changed after she had aged out. So she really missed out on that aspect of her life. And then she shifted to another time of her life where she told me about her daughter. She told me her daughter had a black and white paint mare named Bella that lived down the road on 20 acres, and she begged me to give her Honey. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, no, sorry, my daughter will write me off forever if I don't come back home with her pony. And at that time I noticed that there was a lady that was like really uncomfortably staring at us, and it made me uncomfortable. I thought she was worried that like Honey was going to bite or kick, and she was just like watching every move Honey made. And at the end of the visit we left, and I was walking out the door, and that lady paused and stopped me, and she had tears in her eyes. And she was like, I just want to thank you for today. I don't know what made you bring, Honey out. And I was like, yeah, it was wonderful. The seniors seemed to love it. And she said, you don't quite understand. She said, today you have given me a gift that I haven't had in over 5 years. And I, kind of just paused, and she continued talking, and she said, you've been visiting with my mom for the past hour. And my mom doesn't even know that I'm standing in this room today. She said, my mom told you that she loved me. She said my name. She told you horror stories that I grew up listening to. And I just want to thank you for that gift. And I mean, I have goosebumps that like every
Yeah.
time I share that story. I promised her I'd keep doing the work. I told her I'd keep, begging facilities to let us come in. And that moment I knew that this was something that was needed. So
You
that's
do,
kind of
how many, because you're busy with so many and you've got just a tiny group. So here's your chance to do a shout out to your volunteers because without them, this doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, we rely on a really small team, and they're incredible. I have an amazing board of directors. Most of our volunteers that are our core volunteers sit on our board of directors, so they kind of have just become part of the mission. It's an immeasurable amount of work that they put into keeping the mission going, and we do a lot of visits throughout the year. Anywhere between 400 and 500 visits in a year is what we do. So I will say that everyone that is volunteering for the organization, they love this work just as much as I do. They put just as much heart into it. They're all here involved in the organization for a reason, and they're incredible. We definitely wouldn't be able to do what we do without them.
And now, professionally, you are finishing your certification, and I want to make sure I get this right, a licensed clinical social worker. Now, what does this
Yes.
mean as far as your practice is concerned? But you also said that once you get that certification, that will have some very positive implications for the whole concept of the portable traveling equine therapy programs.
Yeah, so I actually sit for my licensure exam tomorrow. I'm a master of social work, and I've sat through 2 years of clinical supervision that's required for me to become a therapist or a licensed clinical social worker. So that does change the type of work that we're able to do. It allows us to bill through insurance companies for equine facilitated psychotherapy, and it really puts that we've taken the time as like our organization and me as the founder to get the education, the licensure, to be a mental health organization that is operating portably in facilities. So
So
we can
this
start. We Go ahead.
No, so this would have implications for other social workers and other programs elsewhere. Because if you've proven it can be done, then they can get the licensing and expand this whole concept.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think other organizations have the ability to go get the degree themselves and become an LCSW too, or they can partner with an LCSW, so that they don't have to put all of that, time into graduate school, and because it was hard. It wasn't an easy process. And I also I think kind of what you're touching on is the research project that we're facilitating. We have another person that's coming up through graduate school. She's in her final year. She's doing a research study that is specific to portable equine therapy. And that study will give other organizations that aren't just Honey's Mini Therapy Adventures some data, some research, that will help if they partner with an LCSW to be able to build their insurance. So it's kind of all comprehensive all together.
Yeah,
They're
but it's
kind
all
of both
good.
working.
But
Oh,
it's
it's
also all
amazing.
good. Okay, well,
Yeah,
I want to
no, it's
thank you for this.
yes,
And if you're listening and you want to learn more about Honey's Mini Therapy Adventures, you can visit www.minitherapy.org, and that's going to show up on the screen when this airs. And you can find out more information about Honey and the other horses, and more importantly, the programs and services they provide for the community and how you might choose to support them. So, Mary Rose, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun and very, very interesting.
absolutely. We appreciate the opportunity to be here, and it's been so nice to meet you. And we can't wait to listen to all the series in the podcast.
Thank you. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Riders of a Certain Age presents Conversations Beyond the Barn. If you enjoy it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Please leave a comment and suggestions for future shows, guests, topics, interesting equine activities. I'd love to hear about them, so would everybody else. And while you're at it, you can support the podcast by buymeacoffee.com/certain age. Support Conversations Beyond the Barn. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next week.